The custody papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, signed by my own mother as a witness for my ex-husband. My family had helped him take my children, and I lost everything I thought mattered. 3 years later, the court security officer who had escorted me out in handcuffs was calling me Chief Justice. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The envelope felt heavier than it should have when I pulled it from my mailbox that October morning. The return address read Whitmore and Associates, Family Law, and I knew before opening it that my world was about to collapse. My name is Rebecca Sterling, and I should have recognized the signs that my family was orchestrating my destruction long before the legal documents made it official. The custody modification papers were meticulously prepared, each page detailing why I was allegedly unfit to maintain primary custody of my 2 children, Emma and Lucas. What made my hands shake as I read through the allegations was not just the content, but the signatures on the witness statements. My mother, Patricia Sterling, had signed an affidavit claiming I had been emotionally unstable and financially irresponsible during family gathering. My sister, Michelle, had provided a detailed statement about my erratic behavior and inability to maintain stable employment. The most devastating signature belonged to my father, retired Judge Harold Sterling, whose statement carried the weight of 3 decades on the bench. He had written in his precise judicial handwriting that he had grave concerns about Rebecca's capacity to provide adequate care for the minor children, based on observed behavioral patterns and documented incidents of poor judgment. I collapsed onto my kitchen floor, clutching the papers that represented the complete betrayal of everyone I had trusted. The allegations were not entirely fabricated, but they were distorted beyond recognition. The emotional instability referred to my tears during family dinners when they criticized my recent divorce. The financial irresponsibility was actually my struggle to maintain the mortgage payments on our family home while working part-time at a local law firm. The erratic behavior was my withdrawal from family gatherings where I was constantly reminded of my failures. My ex-husband, David Whitmore, had been methodically building this case for months with the full cooperation of my family. The evidence presented painted a picture of a woman who had spiraled into depression after her divorce, unable to maintain stable employment or provide consistent care for her children. The documentation included photographs of my cluttered home during particularly difficult weeks, testimonies from family members about my concerning behavior, and financial records showing irregular income and mounting debt. The irony was overwhelming. Here I was, a law school graduate who had passed the bar exam but never practiced law, being outmaneuvered by my own family in a custody battle that would determine my access to my children. I had spent years working part-time positions because David had insisted I prioritize childcare over career advancement. Now that same career stagnation was being used as evidence of my incompetence. The custody arrangement being proposed was devastating in its thoroughness. David would have primary custody, with my visitation limited to supervised visits every other weekend. The supervision would be conducted by a court-appointed social worker, and I would be required to attend counseling sessions and parenting classes before any modification of the arrangement could be considered. The financial provisions were equally harsh, with child support obligations that would consume most of my modest income. What made the betrayal particularly painful was the calculated nature of my family's involvement. These were not spontaneous statements made in the heat of family conflict, but carefully crafted testimonies that had been coordinated with David's legal team. The timing, the language, and the specific examples cited all showed evidence of careful planning and legal consultation. I had trusted my family to support me through the most difficult period of my life, and instead they had systematically documented my vulnerabilities to be used against me in court. The dinners where I had sought comfort became evidence of my instability. The conversations where I had confided my fears about the future became testimonies about my inability to plan effectively. The moments when I had shown emotion became proof of my unsuitability as a parent. The legal strategy was brilliant in its cruelty. David's attorneys had transformed natural human responses to trauma and stress into evidence of psychological instability and parental incompetence. They had used my family's intimate knowledge of my struggles to build a case that would be almost impossible to defend against, particularly given my limited financial resources and lack of legal representation. As I sat on my kitchen floor, surrounded by the documentation of my family's betrayal, I realized that everything I had believed about loyalty, trust, and family support had been an illusion. The people who should have been helping me navigate this crisis had instead been collaborating with my ex-husband to ensure I would lose custody of my children. The phone rang, interrupting my shock and grief. The caller identified himself as Richard Garrison, David's lead attorney, and his voice carried the confidence of someone who knew he held all the advantage. He explained that while the custody modification was being processed, David was requesting immediate temporary custody pending the court hearing. He suggested that I might want to consider agreeing to the arrangement voluntarily to avoid the expense and embarrassment of a contested hearing. The conversation was brief but illuminating. Garrison spoke to me with the dismissive tone reserved for opponents who posed no real threat. He had clearly been briefed on my financial situation, my lack of legal representation, and my family's unwillingness to support me. He knew that I was isolated, overwhelmed, and unlikely to mount an effective defense. After hanging up, I walked through my home, seeing it through the eyes of the people who had documented its shortcomings. The children's toys scattered across the living room floor. Evidence of my failure to maintain proper organization. The stack of unpaid bills on my desk. Proof of my financial irresponsibility. The empty wine bottles in the recycling bin. Documentation of my alleged drinking problem. Every aspect of my life had been scrutinized and interpreted through the lens of inadequacy. The part-time work schedule that allowed me to be available for school pickups became evidence of my inability to maintain stable employment. The tears I had shed during family conversations became proof of my emotional instability. The financial struggles that were a natural consequence of divorce became evidence of my inability to provide for my children. The custody papers included a detailed parenting plan that would govern my interactions with Emma and Lucas. The supervised visits would take place at a neutral location, with all conversations monitored and documented. I would be prohibited from discussing the custody arrangement with the children, or making any negative comments about their father. Any violation of these restrictions would result in immediate suspension of visitation rights. The document concluded with a court date scheduled for 3 weeks away, providing minimal time for me to secure legal representation or prepare a defense. The timing was clearly calculated to maximize my disadvantage, as most experienced family law attorneys would be unable to take on a complex custody case with such short notice. As evening approached, I attempted to call my parents, hoping that there might be some explanation for their involvement in this betrayal. My mother answered the phone with the same voice she had used throughout my childhood, but her words carried a coldness I had never heard before. "Rebecca, we did what we thought was best for Emma and Lucas," she said when I confronted her about the affidavit. "You have not been yourself since the divorce, and we are concerned about the children's well-being. David can provide them with stability and security that you simply cannot offer right now." The conversation continued for 20 minutes, but it became clear that my parents had convinced themselves that their betrayal was actually an act of love. They had accepted David's narrative about my inadequacy as a parent, and had chosen to support him rather than their own daughter. The financial security he could provide, the stable home environment, and the extended family support system he offered seemed more important to them than my relationship with my children. My sister's response was even more painful. Michelle had always been the successful one, the daughter who had married well, and maintained the perfect family image that my parents valued. Her statement to David's attorneys was filled with specific examples of my supposed failures, drawn from private conversations where I had confided my fears and struggles. "You need to get your life together before you can be a proper mother," she told me during our phone call. "This arrangement might actually be good for you. It will give you time to focus on your career and get the help you obviously need." The conversation ended with Michelle suggesting that I should be grateful for David's willingness to maintain the children's relationship with my family, despite my obvious shortcomings. She seemed genuinely convinced that supporting David's custody petition was in everyone's best interest, including my own. That night, I sat in Emma's bedroom, surrounded by her drawings and school projects, trying to understand how I had become so isolated and vulnerable. The divorce had been difficult, but I had assumed that my family would provide emotional support and practical assistance during the transition. Instead, they had used their intimate knowledge of my struggles to build a case against me. The realization that I was completely alone was both devastating and liberating. I had no family support, no significant financial resources, and no legal representation, but I also had no one left to disappoint or appease. The expectations and judgments that had shaped my decisions for years were suddenly irrelevant. As I prepared for bed, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and saw someone I no longer recognized. The confident law school graduate, who had passed the bar exam, had been replaced by a woman who had allowed others to define her worth and capability. The person staring back at me had accepted limitations and made excuses for years, but she was about to discover what she was truly capable of achieving. The custody papers remained spread across my kitchen table, a reminder of the battle I was facing. But as I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I felt something I had not experienced in months, a sense of purpose and determination that would fuel everything that followed. The next morning would mark the beginning of my transformation from a defeated ex-wife into someone who would not only win back her children, but rise to the highest levels of the legal profession. The family that had betrayed me would eventually witness my success from the gallery of the courtroom where I would preside as Chief Justice. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. But first, I had to survive the custody battle that would test every assumption I had about my own capabilities and force me to discover strengths I never knew I possessed. The journey ahead would be more challenging than anything I had ever attempted, but it would also prove that the most powerful response to betrayal is not revenge, but rather the kind of success that renders the betrayal irrelevant. The papers on my kitchen table represented more than just a custody dispute. They were the catalyst for a transformation that would change not only my life, but also my understanding of what was possible when someone refused to accept defeat as permanent. The family that had written me off as a failure was about to discover that they had severely underestimated the woman they thought they knew. The morning after receiving the custody papers, I woke with a clarity that had been absent from my life for months. The shock of my family's betrayal had burned away the fog of self-doubt that had clouded my judgment since the divorce. As I sat at my kitchen table reviewing the legal documents with fresh eyes, I began to see patterns and opportunities that had been invisible to me the night before. The first revelation came as I analyzed the witness statements more carefully. While the content was damaging, the legal construction was surprisingly weak. My father's judicial experience had given him credibility, but it had also made him overconfident in his assessment of what constituted legally admissible evidence. His statement contained several assertions that were based on hearsay and speculation rather than direct observation, potential grounds for challenging the testimony. My mother's affidavit was even more problematic from a legal perspective. Her claims about my emotional instability were vague and subjective, lacking the specific incidents and documentation that would make them compelling in court. The financial irresponsibility allegations were based on her limited understanding of my actual financial situation, drawn from casual conversations rather than review of actual records. Michelle's statement was perhaps the most vulnerable to challenge. Her examples of my erratic behavior were taken from private family conversations where I had been seeking emotional support during a difficult period. The context of these interactions would be crucial to understanding whether my responses were actually inappropriate or simply human reactions to stress and trauma. As I studied the legal strategy David's team had employed, I began to recognize the sophisticated manipulation that had been used to isolate me from potential support systems. The timing of the custody filing had been calculated to coincide with my period of greatest vulnerability. The coordination with my family had been designed to eliminate my most likely sources of emotional and financial assistance. The realization that I had been systematically manipulated was both devastating and empowering. The depression and self-doubt I had experienced were not natural responses to divorce, but rather the intended outcomes of a calculated campaign to undermine my confidence and capability. Understanding this manipulation allowed me to begin separating my actual circumstances from the distorted narrative that had been constructed around them. I spent the morning creating a comprehensive assessment of my real situation, stripped of the emotional manipulation and family pressure that had clouded my judgment. The financial analysis revealed that while my income was modest, my expenses were manageable and my debt was primarily related to divorce-related legal costs rather than irresponsible spending. The employment history showed consistent part-time work that had been deliberately chosen to prioritize childcare responsibilities. The parenting assessment was even more revealing. My relationship with Emma and Lucas was strong, built on consistent daily interactions and emotional connection. The children were thriving academically and socially, with no behavioral problems or signs of neglect. The supervision requirement being proposed was clearly punitive rather than protective, designed to create barriers to our relationship rather than ensure their safety. The legal research I conducted that afternoon provided additional insights into the custody case. David's attorneys had filed for modification based on substantial change in circumstances, but the evidence presented was largely subjective and circumstantial. The burden of proof for custody modification was actually quite high, requiring clear evidence of harm to the children's well-being rather than simple preference for one parent over another. My law school training, dormant for years but not forgotten, began to reassert itself as I analyzed the case from a strategic perspective. The opposing counsel had relied heavily on my family's cooperation and my assumed inability to mount an effective defense. They had crafted a narrative that was emotionally compelling but legally questionable, assuming that I would either accept the arrangement or present such a weak defense that the court would default to their position. The discovery process would be crucial to challenging their narrative. Financial records would demonstrate my actual fiscal responsibility. Employment records would show consistent work history and positive references. School records would document the children's academic success and emotional stability. Medical records would refute any claims about my mental health or parenting capacity. The weakness in David's case became more apparent as I researched similar custody modifications. The courts generally preferred to maintain existing custody arrangements, unless there was clear evidence of harm or significant changes in circumstances. The financial advantages that David could provide were not sufficient grounds for modification without evidence of actual inadequacy in my care. The coordination with my family, while emotionally devastating, had actually created legal vulnerabilities. The statements were clearly coordinated and potentially coached, which could be demonstrated through analysis of language patterns and timing. The motivation for their involvement was questionable, potentially based on financial considerations or family pressure rather than genuine concern for the children's welfare. My father's involvement was particularly problematic from a legal perspective. His judicial experience gave him credibility, but it also created ethical concerns about his participation in what was essentially a legal strategy session. The potential for improper influence or advice could be grounds for challenging his testimony or even requesting judicial review of his involvement. The timeline of events revealed additional strategic consideration. The custody filing had been timed to coincide with my period of greatest emotional vulnerability, but it had also been filed during a period when my circumstances were actually improving. My employment situation was stabilizing, my financial position was strengthening, and my emotional recovery was progressing steadily. The children's preferences and experiences would be crucial factors in any custody determination. At ages 10 and 8, Emma and Lucas were old enough to express their preferences and describe their experiences with both parents. Their consistent desire to maintain their current living arrangement, and their positive relationship with me, would be significant factors in the court's decision. The supervised visitation requirement was perhaps the most concerning aspect of the proposed arrangement. This type of restriction was typically reserved for cases involving abuse, neglect, or serious safety concern. The imposition of supervision based on subjective assessments of emotional stability set a dangerous precedent, that could be challenged on constitutional grounds. The psychological evaluation requirement was another area where David's team had overreached. While courts could order evaluations when there were legitimate concerns about parental fitness, the request was based on family testimony rather than professional assessment. The process itself could be challenged as punitive rather than protective, particularly if the evaluator was selected by the opposing party. As I delved deeper into the legal research, I discovered that custody modifications, based on financial considerations, were actually disfavored by many courts. The principle that children should not be removed from loving homes, simply because one parent could provide greater material advantages, was well established in family law. The emphasis on David's financial resources could actually work against his case if presented properly. The evening brought another crucial realization about my situation. The isolation that had been created through family betrayal had actually eliminated conflicting loyalties and expectations that had been limiting my effectiveness. Without the need to maintain family relationships or meet their approval, I was free to pursue strategies that would be most effective for my case, rather than most acceptable to them. The legal skills I had developed in law school were not just academic knowledge, but practical tools that could be applied to my situation. The analytical thinking, research capabilities, and strategic planning that had been dormant were exactly what I needed to mount an effective defense. The confidence that had been undermined by family criticism was actually based on real competence and achievement. The financial constraints that seemed so limiting were actually manageable with proper planning and resource allocation. The legal costs that appeared overwhelming could be reduced through self-representation in certain areas and strategic use of limited professional assistance. The time restrictions created by part-time work could be managed through efficient preparation and focused effort. The emotional toll of the custody battle was significant, but it was also temporary and manageable. The stress and anxiety that had been paralyzing were actually normal responses to abnormal circumstance. The depression that had been cited as evidence of my inadequacy was a treatable condition that did not impact my parenting ability or legal competence. The support systems that had been eliminated through family betrayal could be rebuilt through professional relationships and community connection. The Legal Aid Society, Bar Association resources, and pro bono programs offered alternatives to traditional legal representation. The parenting support groups and counseling services could provide both practical assistance and documentation of my commitment to improvement. As I concluded my assessment, I realized that the custody case was not just about maintaining my relationship with my children, but about reclaiming my identity as a competent professional and capable parent. The challenge would require me to use skills I had not exercised in years and develop new capabilities I had never tested. The success would depend not just on legal strategy, but on personal transformation and professional growth. The recognition that I possessed both the tools and the motivation to fight effectively marked a fundamental shift in my approach to the custody battle. The victim mentality that had been cultivated through months of family criticism was replaced by a strategic mindset focused on achieving specific objectives. The defensive posture that had characterized my response to the divorce was replaced by an offensive strategy designed to expose the weaknesses in David's case. The family that had betrayed me had actually provided me with valuable intelligence about their own motivations and methods. The intimate knowledge they had used against me could be turned to my advantage by exposing their bias and coordination. The emotional manipulation they had employed could be documented and presented as evidence of their inappropriate involvement in what should have been a straightforward custody determination. The transformation from defeated ex-wife to determined advocate was fueled by the recognition that the challenges I faced were not insurmountable obstacles, but rather opportunities to demonstrate capabilities that had been suppressed by years of family expectations and marital compromise. The custody battle would be the first test of my renewed determination, but it would not be the last. The development of my comprehensive strategy began at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, 3 days after receiving the custody paper. I had awakened with absolute clarity about the magnitude of the challenge ahead, and the systematic approach required to overcome it. The custody battle was not merely a legal dispute, but rather the foundation for a complete professional and personal transformation that would redefine my identity and capabilities. The strategic framework I developed operated on multiple levels simultaneously. The immediate objective was to successfully defend against the custody modification and maintain primary custody of Emma and Lucas. The intermediate goal was to demonstrate professional competence and legal expertise that would establish my credibility within the legal community. The long-term vision was to transform my career trajectory from part-time legal assistant to practicing attorney, and eventually to judicial appointment. The legal defense strategy required meticulous planning and resource allocation. I calculated that mounting an effective defense would require approximately 60 hours of preparation time, including case research, document review, witness preparation, and legal brief writing. The financial requirements included court filing fees, document production costs, and limited professional consultation fees, totaling approximately $3,000. The timeline was compressed but manageable with proper prioritization. The custody hearing was scheduled for 18 days away, providing enough time for thorough preparation if every hour was used efficiently. I created a detailed schedule that allocated specific time blocks for research, writing, and preparation activities, while maintaining my part-time work responsibilities and childcare obligation. The evidence collection phase would be crucial to dismantling the narrative constructed by David's legal team. I began by requesting all financial records from the past 2 years, including bank statements, employment records, and tax returns. These documents would demonstrate my actual financial stability and responsible money management, directly contradicting the allegations of fiscal irresponsibility. The documentation of my parenting capabilities required gathering evidence from multiple sources. School records would show Emma and Lucas's academic performance and attendance, reflecting the stability of their home environment. Medical records would document their physical and emotional health, contradicting any claims of inadequate care. Teacher recommendations would provide professional assessments of my involvement in their education and development. The psychological evaluation strategy required careful consideration of both offensive and defensive approach. I researched the proposed evaluator's background and discovered a history of bias toward traditional family structures that could be grounds for challenging the selection. Additionally, I began documenting my own emotional stability and parenting effectiveness through counseling sessions and parenting classes that would demonstrate proactive self-improvement. The witness preparation component involved identifying individuals who could provide credible testimony about my character and parenting abilities. Former colleagues from my law school years could speak to my professional competence and dedication. Current coworkers could describe my reliability and work ethic. The children's teachers and coaches could provide objective assessments of my involvement in their activities and their emotional well-being. The challenge of my family's coordinated testimony required a sophisticated counter-strategy. I began analyzing the statements for inconsistencies and potential bias indicators. The timing of their involvement suggested coordination that could be exposed through careful questioning. The motivations for their participation might include financial considerations or family pressure that could be explored during cross-examination. The financial strategy extended beyond the immediate custody case to encompass my broader professional development. I calculated that transitioning from part-time work to full-time legal practice would require approximately 6 months of reduced income while building a client base. The investment in professional development, including continuing education and bar association membership, would total approximately $5,000 annually. The career development plan required systematic skill rebuilding and professional network expansion. I identified specific areas where my legal knowledge needed updating, including recent changes in family law, civil procedure, and professional ethics. The continuing education requirements could be satisfied through online courses and professional seminars that would also provide networking opportunities.
The professional identity transformation demanded attention to both substance and presentation. I began updating my resume to emphasize my legal education and analytical capabilities rather than my current support role. The professional wardrobe investment would project competence and authority in court appearances and client meetings. The office setup would eventually require space for client consultations and case preparation.
The technology infrastructure needed for modern legal practice required significant upgrades. Legal research databases, case management software, and document preparation systems would be essential for competing with established firms. The initial investment would be substantial but necessary for providing efficient and effective legal services. The marketing strategy for building a legal practice focused on leveraging my unique background and expertise. The experience of successfully navigating a complex custody case while representing myself would provide credibility with potential clients facing similar challenges. The combination of legal knowledge and personal experience would differentiate my practice from traditional family law firms. The time management system required precision and discipline to balance multiple competing demands. I developed a detailed scheduling system that allocated specific time blocks for case preparation, client work, professional development, and family responsibilities. The efficiency gains from structured time management would be crucial for managing increased responsibilities. The stress management component was essential for maintaining effectiveness under pressure. I implemented a comprehensive wellness program that included regular exercise, meditation, and professional counseling. The emotional stability required for effective legal practice demanded systematic attention to mental health and stress reduction. The financial planning extended beyond immediate case expenses to encompass long-term career development costs. I created a detailed budget that accounted for reduced income during the transition period, increased professional expenses, and the investment required for establishing a legal practice. The financial projections showed that the investment would pay for itself within 2 years if properly executed. The risk assessment identified potential obstacles and developed contingency plans for each scenario. The possibility of losing the custody case required preparation for appeals and alternative arrangements. The challenge of establishing a legal practice required backup plans for maintaining income during the transition period. The family relationship damage required strategies for managing ongoing conflicts and protecting the children from further manipulation. The success metrics included both quantitative and qualitative measures of progress. The immediate success would be measured by the custody case outcome and the establishment of stable visitation arrangements. The intermediate success would include client acquisition, income growth, and professional recognition. The long-term success would encompass judicial appointment opportunities and leadership roles within the legal community. The competitive analysis revealed opportunities within the local legal market for specialized family law service. The existing firms were primarily focused on high-income clients and complex commercial cases. The underserved market included middle-income families facing custody disputes, divorce proceedings, and domestic relations challenges. The professional development plan included specific goals for bar association involvement, continuing education completion, and leadership role acquisition. The networking strategy focused on building relationships with established attorneys, judges, and legal professionals who could provide mentorship and referral opportunities. The public relations component would eventually include speaking engagements, professional writing, and community service activities that would establish my reputation as a knowledgeable and dedicated family law attorney. The visibility within the legal community would be crucial for attracting clients and building the credibility necessary for judicial consideration. The implementation timeline extended over a 3-year period, with specific milestones and checkpoint evaluation. The first year would focus on winning the custody case and establishing basic legal practice infrastructure. The second year would emphasize client acquisition and reputation building. The third year would target leadership opportunities and judicial appointment consideration. The resource allocation plan prioritized the most critical elements, while maintaining flexibility for opportunity recognition. The initial investment in legal research and case preparation would provide the foundation for all subsequent activity. The professional development expenses would be scaled based on income growth and market opportunities. The quality control measures included regular performance assessments and strategy adjustments based on results and changing circumstance. The feedback mechanisms would ensure continuous improvement and adaptation to market conditions. The success tracking would provide data for optimizing resource allocation and strategic focus. The comprehensive strategy represented more than just a plan for winning a custody case. It was a blueprint for complete professional transformation that would establish me as a respected legal practitioner and eventually position me for judicial appointment. The systematic approach would ensure that every action contributed to multiple objectives and that resources were used efficiently to achieve maximum impact. The development of this strategy required me to envision a future that was dramatically different from my current circumstance. The confidence to pursue such an ambitious transformation came from the recognition that I possessed the foundational skills and knowledge necessary for success. The legal education that had been dormant for years provided the technical foundation. The analytical capabilities that had been underutilized in my current role provided the strategic thinking required for complex problem solving. The implementation of this comprehensive strategy would test every aspect of my capabilities and determination. The custody battle would be the first proving ground, but it would be followed by challenges that would require even greater skill and persistence. The family that had betrayed me would eventually witness my transformation from defeated ex-wife to Chief Justice, but first I had to execute the plan that would make that transformation possible. The transformation from part-time legal assistant to competent legal advocate required intensive preparation that extended far beyond case research and document review. I understood that my success would depend not only on legal knowledge but on professional presence, strategic thinking, and the confidence to compete with seasoned attorneys who had years of courtroom experience. The preparation phase would test my dedication and force me to develop capabilities I had never fully explored. The legal research component began with a comprehensive review of recent custody case law and statutory changes that had occurred since my law school graduation. I discovered that family law had evolved significantly, with new emphasis on child welfare standards, parental rights protections, and evidence requirements for custody modification. The research revealed that David's legal team had relied on outdated precedents and assumptions that could be challenged through current legal standards. I established a systematic approach to legal research that would serve as the foundation for all future practice activity. The process involved daily review of recent court decisions, regulatory changes, and professional practice updates. I subscribed to legal databases and professional journals that provided current information on family law development. The investment in continuing education would demonstrate my commitment to professional excellence and ensure that my knowledge remained current. The brief writing preparation required me to rebuild skills that had been dormant since law school. I began by studying exemplary legal briefs from successful custody cases, analyzing their structure, argumentation, and citation methods. The writing process demanded precision and clarity that exceeded typical business communication requirements. Each argument needed to be supported by specific legal authority and presented in a logical sequence that would persuade judicial decision-makers. The practice of legal writing consumed hours each day as I developed multiple drafts of motions, responses, and supporting document. The process revealed that my analytical thinking had remained sharp despite years of underutilization. The ability to construct logical arguments and identify weaknesses in opposing positions had been strengthened rather than diminished by my experience navigating complex family dynamics and workplace challenges. The courtroom presentation skills required the most intensive development effort. I had minimal experience with oral argument and no background in adversarial proceedings. The preparation involved studying video recordings of effective courtroom advocates, analyzing their presentation techniques, and practicing responses to potential questions and challenges. The development of confident professional presence would be crucial for establishing credibility with judges and opposing counsel. The practice sessions took place in my living room, where I rehearsed opening statements, direct examinations, and cross-examination techniques. I created mock scenarios based on anticipated challenges and developed responses that would demonstrate competence while maintaining professional demeanor. The repetition built muscle memory and confidence that would be essential during actual court proceedings. The professional wardrobe investment reflected the recognition that appearance and presentation would influence perceptions of competence and credibility. I researched appropriate courtroom attire and invested in high-quality clothing that would project authority and professionalism. The investment extended beyond clothing to include briefcase, organizational materials, and technology tools that would support efficient case management. The networking strategy focused on building relationships within the legal community that could provide guidance, referrals, and professional opportunities. I began attending bar association meetings, legal seminars, and professional development events. The initial discomfort of entering established social networks was offset by the recognition that isolation had been a significant factor in my previous vulnerability. The relationships I developed with other attorneys provided invaluable insights into courtroom procedures, judicial preferences, and effective advocacy techniques. The informal mentoring relationships that emerged from these connections offered practical advice that complemented my formal legal education. The professional community that I had been excluded from during my marriage became an essential support system for my transformation. The financial management component required careful budgeting and resource allocation to support the intensive preparation while maintaining family responsibilities. I developed a detailed budget that prioritized essential expenses while eliminating unnecessary costs. The discipline required for effective financial management would be crucial for eventual practice management and client service. The time management system became increasingly sophisticated as I balanced preparation activities with work responsibilities and parenting obligations. I implemented productivity techniques that maximized efficiency and eliminated time-wasting activities. The structured approach to time management would prove essential when managing multiple client cases and complex legal matters. The stress management preparation involved developing coping strategies for high-pressure situations and adversarial encounters. I implemented regular exercise routines, meditation practices, and professional counseling that would maintain emotional stability during challenging periods. The emotional resilience required for effective legal practice demanded systematic attention to mental health and stress reduction. The technology skills development included mastery of legal research databases, document management systems, and case presentation software. The modern legal practice required technological competence that extended beyond basic computer skills to include specialized legal applications. The investment in technology training would provide competitive advantages and improve client service capability. The case preparation for the custody hearing required meticulous attention to detail and comprehensive documentation. I developed a case management system that tracked all evidence, witness information, and legal argument. The organizational approach would ensure that no critical information was overlooked and that all materials were readily accessible during court proceedings. The witness preparation involved coaching individuals who would provide testimonies supporting my case. The process required developing their confidence while ensuring that their statements remained truthful and persuasive. The ability to prepare witnesses effectively would be crucial for future client representation and case management. The evidence organization required creating compelling presentations that would effectively communicate complex information to judicial decision-makers. I developed visual aids, document summaries, and chronological presentations that would support my arguments and make the case more accessible to the court. The presentation skills would be essential for future client advocacy and courtroom effectiveness. The professional development plan included specific goals for bar association involvement, continuing education completion, and leadership role acquisition. I identified opportunities for committee participation, volunteer service, and professional writing that would establish my reputation within the legal community. The visibility and credibility gained through professional involvement would be crucial for attracting clients and building a sustainable practice. The competitive analysis revealed opportunities within the local legal market for specialized family law service. The existing firms were primarily focused on high-income clients and complex commercial cases. The underserved market included middle-income families facing custody disputes, divorce proceedings, and domestic relations challenges that aligned with my background and interest. The marketing strategy development focused on leveraging my unique background and expertise to differentiate my eventual practice from established competitors. The combination of legal knowledge and personal experience with family law challenges would provide credibility with potential clients. The marketing materials would emphasize understanding, accessibility, and effective advocacy for families facing difficult circumstances. The business planning component included detailed projections for practice establishment, client acquisition, and revenue development. I researched office space requirements, professional insurance needs, and regulatory compliance obligations. The comprehensive business plan would ensure that the transition from employee to practice owner would be smooth and financially viable. The professional ethics review ensured that all preparation activities and future practice plans complied with legal profession standards and regulatory requirements. I completed ethics training and reviewed professional responsibility guidelines that would govern my conduct as a practicing attorney. The commitment to ethical practice would be fundamental to building a reputation for integrity and competence. The preparation phase culminated in comprehensive readiness for the custody hearing and the foundation for future professional success. The intensive skill development had transformed my capabilities and confidence while building the infrastructure necessary for effective legal practice. The systematic approach to preparation had created a framework that could be applied to any future challenge or opportunity. The transformation from uncertain ex-wife to confident legal advocate was nearly complete. The preparation had revealed strengths and capabilities that had been suppressed by years of family expectations and marital compromise. The upcoming custody hearing would be the first test of my renewed abilities, but it would not be the last challenge I would face as I pursued the goal of judicial appointment. The comprehensive preparation had prepared me not only for the immediate custody battle, but for the broader professional transformation that would follow. The skills, knowledge, and confidence developed during this intensive period would support every subsequent achievement and challenge. The family that had betrayed me would eventually witness the results of this preparation as I rose to positions of authority and influence they had never imagined possible. The preparation phase had been exhausting but exhilarating, requiring dedication and discipline that pushed me beyond previous limitations. The process had revealed that extraordinary achievement was possible through systematic preparation and unwavering commitment to excellence. The foundation had been established for success that would exceed my own expectations and redefine my understanding of my capability. The implementation of my comprehensive strategy began with a calculated decision to represent myself in the custody proceedings, a choice that would demonstrate my legal competence while conserving financial resources for the long-term transformation plan. The decision to proceed pro se was not born from financial necessity alone, but from the recognition that successfully navigating complex legal proceedings would establish credibility that no amount of theoretical knowledge could provide. My first strategic move involved filing a comprehensive response to David's custody modification petition that exceeded the typical standards for pro se litigants. The document I prepared was 47 pages of meticulously researched legal arguments, supported by current case law and statutory authority. The response challenged every factual allegation, disputed the legal conclusions, and presented counter-evidence that undermined the foundation of David's case. The filing process at the courthouse provided my first opportunity to project the professional presence I had been developing. I arrived 30 minutes early, dressed in the conservative business attire that would become my courtroom uniform. The court clerk's initial assumption that I was an attorney representing a client shifted to surprise when I identified myself as a pro se litigant.
The quality of my documentation and professional presentation immediately set me apart from typical self-represented parties. The response document included a detailed factual chronology that exposed the coordination between David and my family member. I had documented the timing of their meetings, the consistency of their language, and the strategic nature of their involvement. The narrative revealed a calculated campaign to manipulate the custody process, rather than genuine concern for the children's welfare. The presentation was objective and factual, avoiding emotional language that might undermine its credibility. The legal arguments section demonstrated sophisticated understanding of custody law and constitutional principles. I challenged the proposed supervised visitation as violating due process rights and lacking evidentiary support. The financial considerations were addressed through detailed analysis, showing that economic advantages alone could not justify custody modification. The psychological evaluation requirement was disputed as punitive rather than protective, lacking the professional assessment that would typically justify such measure. The counter-evidence presentation included comprehensive documentation of my parenting effectiveness, financial stability, and emotional well-being. School records showed Emma and Lucas maintaining excellent academic performance and regular attendance. Medical records demonstrated consistent healthcare provision and normal developmental progress. Employment records proved steady work history and positive professional references. The documentation painted a picture of stable, effective parenting that contradicted the allegations in David's petition. The witness list I submitted included teachers, healthcare providers, and professional colleagues who could provide objective testimony about my character and capability. The selection was strategic, focusing on individuals with professional credibility who had observed my interactions with the children or my performance in work settings. The witness preparation had been thorough, ensuring that their testimony would be compelling and legally relevant. The discovery requests I filed were comprehensive and targeted, designed to expose weaknesses in David's case while gathering information that would support my position. I requested financial records that would reveal his motivation for seeking custody modification. I demanded communication records that would show coordination with my family members. I sought documentation of his parenting involvement that would challenge his claims of superior capability. The motion practice that followed demonstrated my growing confidence and legal sophistication. I filed motions to compel discovery when David's responses were incomplete, motions to exclude evidence that was irrelevant or prejudicial, and motions for sanctions when opposing counsel failed to comply with procedural requirements. Each motion was professionally written and strategically calculated to advance my case while establishing my competence as a legal advocate. The professional relationships I had been building within the legal community began to provide practical benefits during the case preparation. Senior attorneys offered informal guidance about local court procedures and judicial preferences. The Bar Association Mentorship Program connected me with experienced family law practitioners who provided strategic advice and emotional support. The professional network that had been unavailable during my marriage became an essential resource for navigating the complex legal system. The media strategy I developed was subtle but effective, focusing on establishing my reputation as a knowledgeable legal professional rather than seeking publicity for the custody case. I began writing articles for local bar publications about family law issues, speaking at community events about legal rights and procedures, and participating in pro bono legal clinics that demonstrated my commitment to public service. The visibility within the legal community enhanced my credibility and attracted attention from potential clients and professional opportunities. The financial management during this period required careful balance between case expenses and long-term investment in professional development. I allocated resources to legal research databases, professional association memberships, and continuing education programs, while maintaining the strict budget necessary for family support. The discipline required for effective resource management would prove essential for future practice management and client service. The time management system I had developed was tested to its limits as I balanced case preparation with work responsibilities and parenting obligations. I implemented productivity techniques that maximized efficiency during available hours and eliminated non-essential activities. The structured approach to time management allowed me to maintain high performance in all areas while pursuing the intensive preparation required for the custody hearing. The stress management strategies I had implemented proved crucial during the high-pressure preparation period. Regular exercise routines, meditation practices, and professional counseling maintained emotional stability while dealing with family betrayal and legal challenge. The emotional resilience developed through systematic self-care enabled me to think clearly and make strategic decisions under pressure. The technology utilization expanded beyond basic legal research to include case management software, document production systems, and presentation tools that enhanced my effectiveness and efficiency. The investment in technology training provided competitive advantages that allowed me to compete with established firms despite limited resources. The technological competence would prove essential for future client service and practice management. The case preparation revealed patterns in David's behavior and motivations that provided strategic advantages. His overconfidence in family support had led to inadequate preparation for serious opposition. His reliance on emotional manipulation rather than factual evidence created vulnerabilities that could be exploited through careful cross-examination. His coordination with my family members had created potential ethical issues that could be raised during proceedings. The relationship with opposing counsel, Richard Garrison, evolved from his initial dismissive attitude to grudging respect as my competence became apparent. His assumptions about my capabilities and resources had to be revised as I demonstrated sophisticated legal knowledge and strategic thinking. The professional courtesy that developed between us reflected the mutual respect that emerges between competent advocates, regardless of their backgrounds or circumstance. The preparation for direct examination of witnesses required developing skills in narrative development and information presentation. I practiced techniques for eliciting compelling testimony while maintaining proper legal procedure. The ability to guide witnesses through effective presentation of evidence would be crucial for establishing my case and demonstrating my advocacy capability. The cross-examination preparation involved analyzing the weaknesses in opposing witnesses' testimony and developing strategies for exposing bias, inconsistency, and lack of foundation. I studied the art of impeachment and learned to ask precise questions that would reveal the coordination between David and my family members. The cross-examination skills would be essential for challenging the credibility of witnesses who had participated in the campaign against me. The opening statement preparation required condensing complex legal arguments into accessible narrative that would engage the court's attention and establish the framework for my case. I practiced delivery techniques that would project competence while maintaining respect for the judicial process. The opening statement would be my first opportunity to demonstrate professional competence and establish credibility with the presiding judge. The closing argument preparation involved synthesizing all evidence and legal arguments into persuasive advocacy that would motivate the court to rule in my favor. I developed themes that would resonate with judicial decision-makers while addressing the specific legal standards that governed custody determination. The closing argument would be my final opportunity to demonstrate that I deserved to maintain custody of my children and that my professional capabilities exceeded all expectations. The comprehensive preparation had transformed me from an uncertain ex-wife into a competent legal advocate who was ready to compete with experienced attorneys in complex litigation. The systematic approach to skill development had created capabilities that would serve me well beyond the custody case. The professional presence I had developed would be the foundation for future success in legal practice and judicial service. The implementation of my strategic approach was proceeding according to plan, with each component building upon previous achievements while creating momentum for continued success. The custody hearing would be the first major test of my transformation, but it would not be the last challenge I would face as I pursued the goal of judicial appointment. The preparation had been thorough, the strategy was sound, and the execution was beginning to demonstrate the extraordinary results that systematic effort could achieve. The custody hearing commenced at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning in the Family Court Division of the Madison County Courthouse. Judge Eleanor Hartwell presided over the proceedings with the measured demeanor that had characterized her 23 years on the bench. As I entered the courtroom carrying my meticulously organized case materials, I understood that the next 3 hours would determine not only my future relationship with Emma and Lucas, but also establish the foundation for every professional achievement that would follow. The courtroom atmosphere was formal yet tense, with David and his legal team occupying the plaintiff's table, while I sat alone at the defendant's position. The contrast was deliberately stark, designed to emphasize the resource disparity between us. However, the comprehensive preparation I had undertaken had transformed what should have been a disadvantage into an opportunity to demonstrate exceptional competence and determination. My opening statement began with acknowledgement of the court's responsibility to act in the best interests of the children while establishing the legal framework that would govern the proceeding. I addressed Judge Hartwell directly, speaking with the confidence that months of preparation had instilled while maintaining the respectful tone appropriate for judicial proceeding.
The statement outlined my position clearly and concisely, establishing themes that would resonate throughout the testimony and evidence presentation. The narrative I presented challenged every fundamental assumption underlying David's petition. I demonstrated that the allegations of emotional instability were based on normal responses to family stress rather than indicators of parental inadequacy. The financial irresponsibility claims were refuted through detailed documentation of responsible money management and consistent bill payment. The employment concerns were addressed by showing that part-time work had been a deliberate choice to prioritize childcare responsibilities rather than evidence of professional inadequacy. The presentation of evidence followed a logical progression that built credibility while systematically dismantling the opposing case. School records demonstrated that Emma and Lucas had maintained excellent academic performance and regular attendance throughout the period when I was allegedly providing inadequate care. Medical records showed consistent healthcare provision and normal developmental progress. Employment records proved steady work history and positive professional references that contradicted claims of irresponsibility. The witness examination process revealed the depth of preparation I had undertaken and the professional competence I had developed. Each witness was guided through testimony that supported my position while maintaining proper legal procedures. The questions were precise and purposeful, designed to elicit information that would be persuasive to the court, while establishing my credibility as an effective advocate. Emma's teacher, Mrs. Catherine Morrison, provided testimony about my consistent involvement in school activities and the children's emotional stability. Under my direct examination, she described regular parent-teacher conferences, volunteer activities, and academic support that demonstrated engaged parenting. Her testimony established that the children showed no signs of the neglect or instability that David's petition had alleged. The cross-examination of David's witnesses revealed the coordination and bias that had undermined the credibility of their testimony. My questioning of my mother exposed inconsistencies in her statements and revealed that her knowledge of my financial situation was limited and outdated. The examination demonstrated that her concerns were based on assumptions rather than direct observation, undermining the foundation of her testimony. The cross-examination of my sister Michelle was particularly effective in exposing the emotional manipulation that had influenced her participation in the case. I established that her examples of my alleged erratic behavior were taken from private conversations during periods of stress, and that she had no professional training in psychological assessment. The questioning revealed that her testimony was based on personal judgment, rather than objective evaluation of my parenting capabilities. The examination of my father proved most challenging due to his judicial experience and professional credibility. However, my preparation had identified potential ethical concerns about his involvement in what was essentially a legal strategy session. I established that his assessment was based on limited observation and that his participation in David's case raised questions about appropriate boundaries between family relationships and professional judgment. The presentation of financial evidence required sophisticated analysis and clear explanation of complex information. I demonstrated that my income, while modest, was sufficient to meet the children's needs, and that my spending patterns reflected responsible money management. The evidence showed that financial difficulties had been temporary and related to divorce-related expenses, rather than ongoing irresponsibility. The psychological evaluation component provided an opportunity to demonstrate my proactive approach to self-improvement and emotional stability. I presented evidence of counseling sessions, parenting classes, and stress management activities that showed commitment to personal growth. The professional assessments contradicted claims of emotional instability and supported my position that I was a capable and dedicated parent. The presentation of expert testimony required careful preparation to ensure that professional opinions would be properly qualified and Sarah Henderson, a child psychologist, provided testimony about the importance of maintaining stable parent-child relationships and the potential harm of unnecessary disruption. Her testimony established that the children's current living arrangement was beneficial and that modification would not serve their best interests. The legal argument presentation demonstrated sophisticated understanding of custody law and constitutional principles. I argued that the proposed supervised visitation violated due process rights and lacked evidentiary support. The financial considerations were addressed through legal analysis, showing that economic advantages alone could not justify custody modification. The psychological evaluation requirement was challenged as punitive rather than protective, lacking the professional assessment that would typically justify such measure. The closing argument synthesized all evidence and legal arguments into persuasive advocacy that addressed the specific legal standards governing custody determination. I emphasized the children's stability and academic success under my care, the bias and coordination evident in the opposing testimony, and the lack of evidence supporting the need for custody modification. The argument concluded with a clear request for the court to deny the petition and maintain the existing custody arrangement. The presentation of my case required 3 hours of sustained performance under pressure, demonstrating not only legal knowledge, but also professional presence and advocacy skill. The confidence I projected was genuine, based on thorough preparation and comprehensive understanding of the issues involved. The professional competence I displayed exceeded the expectations typically associated with pro se litigants and established my credibility within the legal community. The interaction with opposing counsel throughout the proceedings reflected the mutual respect that develops between competent advocates. Richard Garrison's initial dismissive attitude had evolved into professional acknowledgement of my capability. The courteous but firm exchanges during objections and procedural matters demonstrated that I could compete effectively with experienced attorneys while maintaining appropriate professional standards. The technology utilization during the presentation included visual aids, document management systems, and presentation tools that enhanced the effectiveness of my advocacy. The investment in technology training had provided competitive advantages that allowed me to present evidence efficiently and persuasively. The technological competence demonstrated professional sophistication that supported my credibility with the court. The stress management strategies I had implemented proved crucial during the high-pressure presentation. The emotional stability required for effective advocacy was maintained through the systematic self-care practices I had developed. The ability to think clearly and respond appropriately under pressure demonstrated the emotional resilience necessary for successful legal practice. The time management during the presentation required precise allocation of available court time to ensure that all essential evidence and arguments were presented effectively. The structured approach to case presentation allowed me to cover all necessary points while maintaining judicial attention and interest. The efficiency demonstrated professional competence that would be essential for future client representation. The professional development that had occurred during the preparation phase was clearly evident in the courtroom presentation. The legal research skills, brief writing capabilities, and oral advocacy techniques had been refined through intensive practice and systematic improvement. The competence displayed during the hearing established my credentials as a serious legal professional rather than a desperate ex-wife seeking sympathy. The case presentation concluded with Judge Hartwell's acknowledgement of the quality of my advocacy and the thoroughness of my preparation. Her comments from the bench reflected surprise at the level of professional competence displayed by a pro se litigant and recognition of the effective advocacy that had been presented. The judicial response validated the transformation that had occurred and established the foundation for future professional recognition. The hearing concluded with the court taking the matter under advisement, with a decision expected within 2 weeks. The quality of my presentation had clearly impressed all participants and observers, establishing my reputation as a formidable advocate who could compete effectively with experienced attorneys. The transformation from uncertain ex-wife to confident legal professional had been demonstrated through concrete performance under the most challenging circumstances. The custody hearing had served as more than just a legal proceeding to determine parental rights. It had become a proving ground for professional capabilities and a demonstration of the extraordinary results that systematic preparation and unwavering determination could achieve. The presentation had exceeded all expectations and established the foundation for every subsequent professional achievement. The family members who had betrayed me were present in the courtroom gallery and witnessed the transformation that their actions had inadvertently catalyzed. The competence and confidence I displayed contradicted every assumption they had made about my capabilities and potential. The professional presence I projected established that their assessment of my limitations had been fundamentally flawed. The presentation had demonstrated that extraordinary achievement was possible through systematic preparation and unwavering commitment to excellence. The legal skills that had been dormant for years had been revived and refined through intensive effort. The professional identity that had been suppressed by family expectations and marital compromise had been reclaimed and strengthened through successful performance under pressure. The court ruling arrived on a Tuesday morning, exactly 13 days after the custody hearing concluded. Judge Eleanor Hartwell's written decision was comprehensive and decisive, spanning 18 pages of detailed legal analysis that not only denied David's petition for custody modification, but also criticized the coordination between my family members and opposing counsel. The decision praised the quality of my legal representation and specifically noted that my pro se advocacy had exceeded the standards typically expected from experienced family law practitioners. The ruling addressed each component of David's petition systematically, dismantling the allegations through careful analysis of the evidence presented. Judge Hartwell found that the claims of emotional instability were unsupported by credible evidence and appeared to be based on normal responses to family stress rather than indicators of parental inadequacy. The financial irresponsibility allegations were rejected after review of comprehensive documentation showing responsible money management and consistent provision for the children's needs. The decision was particularly critical of my family's involvement in the proceedings, noting that their coordinated testimony appeared designed to support a predetermined conclusion rather than provide objective assessment of my parenting capability. Judge Hartwell observed that the timing and consistency of their statements suggested collaboration that undermined their credibility as witnesses. The ruling established that family members who participate in custody proceedings must base their testimony on direct observation and professional knowledge rather than emotional manipulation or family politics. The psychological evaluation requirement was deemed inappropriate and punitive, lacking the professional assessment that would typically justify such measure. Judge Hartwell found that my proactive participation in counseling and parenting classes demonstrated commitment to personal growth rather than evidence of inadequacy. The decision emphasized that parents should be encouraged to seek support and improvement rather than penalized for acknowledging areas where growth might be beneficial. The legal analysis portion of the decision provided detailed commentary on the constitutional principles governing custody determinations and the evidentiary standards required for modification of existing arrangements. Judge Hartwell noted that economic advantages alone could not justify custody modification without clear evidence of harm to the children's well-being. The decision emphasized that the court's primary responsibility was to protect the best interests of the children, rather than reward the parent with greater financial resources. The ruling concluded with specific findings that Emma and Lucas had thrived under my care, maintaining excellent academic performance and demonstrating emotional stability throughout the period when I was allegedly providing inadequate supervision. The decision noted that the children's consistent desire to maintain their current living arrangement was a significant factor in the court's analysis. Judge Hartwell observed that disrupting stable parent-child relationships without compelling justification would be contrary to established principles of family law. The professional recognition that followed the court decision exceeded my expectations and established the foundation for expanded opportunities within the legal community. Richard Garrison, David's lead attorney, approached me after the ruling was announced to acknowledge the quality of my advocacy and to discuss potential referral arrangement. His transformation from dismissive opponent to respectful colleague reflected the broader recognition that my courtroom performance had generated within the local legal community. The conversation with Garrison revealed that the legal community had been closely monitoring the proceedings due to the unusual circumstances of a pro se litigant presenting such sophisticated advocacy. The consensus among experienced practitioners was that my performance had exceeded professional standards and demonstrated capabilities that warranted serious consideration for complex legal matters. The recognition provided validation that the intensive preparation and skill development had achieved their intended objectives. The Madison County Bar Association extended an invitation for me to present a continuing legal education seminar on pro se advocacy and family law practice. The opportunity to share my experience with established attorneys represented formal recognition of my expertise and provided a platform for establishing professional relationships that would be essential for future success. The presentation would demonstrate thought leadership and contribute to the legal community's understanding of effective advocacy techniques. The media attention generated by the custody case was unexpected but professionally beneficial. The local legal newspaper published a feature article about my successful pro se representation, emphasizing the quality of my advocacy and the comprehensive nature of my case preparation. The article positioned me as an example of effective self-representation and highlighted the importance of thorough preparation in achieving favorable outcomes. The client inquiries that resulted from the media coverage provided the foundation for establishing a legal practice focused on family law representation. The prospective clients were impressed by my successful navigation of complex custody proceedings and sought representation for similar challenges. The referrals demonstrated that potential clients valued the combination of legal expertise and personal experience that I could provide. The professional mentorship opportunities that emerged from the recognition were invaluable for continued development and career advancement. Senior attorneys within the family law section offered guidance on practice management, client relations, and professional development strategy. The informal mentoring relationships provided practical advice that complemented my formal legal education and helped navigate the transition from employee to independent practitioner. The speaking engagement invitations that followed the custody victory provided platforms for establishing expertise and building professional visibility. The presentations at legal conferences and professional development events demonstrated thought leadership and contributed to the broader understanding of effective family law advocacy. The speaking opportunities also provided networking possibilities that would be essential for future client development and professional advancement. The Law School Alumni Association recognized my achievement through inclusion in their quarterly newsletter and invitation to participate in career development programs for current students. The recognition from my educational institution validated the transformation that had occurred and provided opportunities to inspire others who might be facing similar challenges. The connection with law school provided access to resources and networks that would support continued professional development. The judicial recognition that followed my custody victory was particularly significant for long-term career objectives. Judge Hartwell's written decision had praised the quality of my advocacy and noted that my preparation and presentation had exceeded professional standards. The judicial endorsement provided credibility that would be essential for future practice development and potential judicial appointment consideration. The professional association invitations that resulted from the recognition provided opportunities for leadership, development, and community service. The family law section of the Bar Association invited me to participate in committee work focused on improving access to justice and supporting pro se litigants. The service opportunities demonstrated commitment to the legal profession and provided platforms for continued visibility within the legal community. The consulting opportunities that emerged from the custody victory provided additional income sources while establishing expertise in complex family law matters. Other attorneys sought my assistance with challenging custody cases, recognizing that my successful experience provided valuable insights into effective advocacy strategies. The consulting work demonstrated the practical application of my expertise and provided networking opportunities with established practitioners. The continuing education opportunities that became available through professional recognition supported ongoing skill development and knowledge enhancement. The invitations to participate in advanced legal training programs and specialized seminars provided access to cutting-edge developments in family law and advocacy techniques. The continued learning demonstrated commitment to professional excellence and ensured that my knowledge remained current and comprehensive. The financial benefits that resulted from the recognition were substantial and provided the foundation for sustained professional development. The increased earning potential from client referrals, speaking engagements, and consulting opportunities enabled investment in practice infrastructure and professional development activity. The financial stability removed barriers to continued growth and allowed focus on long-term career objectives. The reputation enhancement that followed the custody victory was evident in changed perceptions within the legal community and broader professional network. The transformation from part-time legal assistant to respected advocate was acknowledged through formal recognition and informal professional courtesy. The reputation for competence and dedication provided credibility that would be essential for future opportunities and challenges. The strategic positioning that resulted from the recognition provided advantages for future career development and professional advancement. The successful custody representation had established expertise in complex family law matters and demonstrated capabilities that exceeded typical expectations. The positioning provided competitive advantages for client development and professional opportunity recognition. The networking expansion that occurred through professional recognition provided access to relationships that would be essential for continued success. The connections with established attorneys, judges, and legal professionals created opportunities for mentorship, collaboration, and referral development. The professional network provided support systems that had been absent during my marriage and custody challenge. The confidence enhancement that resulted from successful advocacy and professional recognition was perhaps the most significant benefit of the custody victory. The validation of my capabilities and the acknowledgement of my professional competence provided psychological foundation for pursuing increasingly ambitious objectives. The confidence gained through successful performance under pressure would be essential for future challenges and opportunities. The strategic implications of the custody victory extended beyond immediate professional benefits to encompass long-term career development and judicial appointment potential. The demonstrated competence in complex legal matters and the recognition from judicial and professional sources provided credibility that would be essential for advancing to positions of greater responsibility and influence. The foundation had been established for pursuing objectives that had seemed impossible during the depths of family betrayal and professional uncertainty. The transformation that had occurred through systematic preparation and unwavering determination had exceeded all expectations and established the foundation for continued success. The recognition received from judicial, professional, and media sources validated the extraordinary achievement that had been accomplished through refusing to accept defeat as permanent. The custody victory had been the catalyst for professional transformation that would continue to generate opportunities and recognition for years to come. The family members who had betrayed me were forced to acknowledge that their assessment of my capabilities had been fundamentally flawed. The success I had achieved through the custody proceedings contradicted every assumption they had made about my potential and demonstrated that their limitations were not my own. The recognition I received from respected professionals provided validation that was more meaningful than any family approval could have been. The establishment of sterling family law practice occurred 6 weeks after the custody victory, marking the complete transition from part-time employee to independent legal practitioner. The decision to launch my own practice reflected not only confidence in my capabilities but also strategic recognition that independence would provide the flexibility necessary to build a reputation based on competence rather than traditional credentials. The practice establishment required comprehensive business planning, regulatory compliance, and professional infrastructure development that tested every aspect of my transformed capability. The office selection process involved detailed analysis of location, accessibility, and professional image considerations. I chose a modest but professional space in the historic downtown district, recognizing that clients would evaluate my competence partially based on environmental factors. The office layout was designed to project confidence and competence while maintaining the approachable atmosphere that would be essential for effective client relations. The investment in professional furniture and technology reflected understanding that successful practice required attention to both substance and presentation. The client acquisition strategy focused on leveraging the recognition generated by my custody victory while building sustainable referral networks within the legal community. The initial client base consisted primarily of individuals facing family law challenges who had learned about my successful pro se representation through media coverage or professional referrals. The clients were attracted by my combination of legal expertise and personal experience with family law proceedings, viewing my background as providing unique understanding of their challenges. The case management system I implemented reflected lessons learned during my custody preparation and established procedures that would ensure consistent quality and efficient service delivery. Each client matter was approached with the same systematic preparation and comprehensive analysis that had characterized my custody defense. The organizational methods developed during my personal legal challenge became standard operating procedures that distinguished my practice from competitors who relied on routine approaches to complex problems. The professional development initiatives I pursued during the practice establishment period focused on expanding expertise beyond family law to include related areas such as estate planning, business formation, and civil litigation. The diversification strategy recognized that sustainable practice required broad competence and multiple revenue streams. The continuing education programs I completed provided credentials that enhanced my credibility while expanding service offerings to meet comprehensive client needs. The legal research capabilities I had developed during my custody preparation became competitive advantages that enabled me to handle complex matters that other solo practitioners might refer to larger firms. The investment in advanced research databases and analytical tools provided access to resources that supported sophisticated legal analysis and strategy development. The research competence that had been essential for my custody victory became a foundation for serving clients with challenging legal problems. The courtroom advocacy skills that had been demonstrated during my custody hearing were refined through regular practice and expanded to encompass different types of legal proceedings. The confidence gained through successful performance under pressure translated into effective representation in diverse legal contexts. The advocacy capabilities that had surprised opposing counsel during my custody case became recognized strengths that attracted clients seeking aggressive and competent representation. The professional relationships that had been established during my custody proceedings provided referral sources and collaborative opportunities that were essential for practice growth. The respect earned through exceptional preparation and performance created networks of attorneys who were willing to refer cases and provide professional support.
Relationships with judges and court personnel that had been developed through professional conduct and competent advocacy facilitated efficient case management and enhanced client service. Business management responsibilities that accompanied practice ownership required developing skills in financial planning, personnel management, and operational efficiency. Discipline that had been essential for managing the custody case preparation translated into effective business operations and client service standards. The systematic approach to problem solving that had characterized my legal work was applied to business challenges with equally successful results. The marketing strategy for the practice emphasized expertise, results, and client service rather than traditional credentials or established reputation. The promotional materials highlighted successful outcomes and client testimonials while positioning the practice as providing personalized attention that larger firms could not match. The marketing approach recognized that potential clients were more interested in results than credentials, provided that competence could be demonstrated through performance. The financial management of the practice required careful budgeting and cash flow planning to ensure sustainability during the initial client development period. The conservative approach to expenses and systematic approach to revenue generation reflected lessons learned during my personal financial challenges. The financial discipline that had been essential for managing limited resources during my custody case became the foundation for sound business practices and sustainable growth. The technology integration within the practice included advanced case management software, client communication systems, and document production tools that enhanced efficiency and client service. The investment in technology reflected understanding that modern legal practice required sophisticated tools to compete effectively. The technological competence that had been developed during my custody preparation became a competitive advantage that improved service delivery and operational efficiency.
The client service standards I established emphasized communication, responsiveness, and comprehensive preparation that exceeded typical industry practices. The approach recognized that clients facing family law challenges required both legal expertise and emotional support during difficult transitions. The service model combined professional competence with personal understanding that reflected my own experience navigating complex family legal issues. The professional ethics compliance program I implemented ensured that all practice activities adhered to the highest standards of professional conduct and regulatory requirements. The commitment to ethical practice reflected understanding that reputation and credibility were essential for long-term success. The ethics program provided systematic review of all client matters and professional activities to ensure compliance with professional responsibility standards. The continuing education program I maintained included regular participation in professional development activities, advanced training programs, and industry conferences that kept my knowledge current and comprehensive. The commitment to ongoing learning reflected understanding that legal practice required continuous improvement and adaptation to changing laws and procedures. The professional development activities also provided networking opportunities that supported practice growth and professional advancement. The mentorship relationships I developed with experienced practitioners provided guidance on practice management, client relations, and professional development strategies. The informal mentoring arrangements offered practical advice that complemented formal education and helped navigate the challenges of independent practice. The mentorship relationships also provided emotional support during difficult periods and professional validation during successful outcomes. The community involvement activities I pursued included pro bono legal services, professional association participation, and civic engagement that demonstrated commitment to public service. The community service reflected understanding that professional success carried obligations to contribute to the broader welfare of society. The involvement in community activities also provided networking opportunities and enhanced professional visibility within the local legal community. The strategic planning for long-term practice development included expansion possibilities, specialization opportunities, and eventual transition strategies. The planning process recognized that sustainable practice required continuous evolution and adaptation to changing market conditions. The strategic approach to practice development reflected the systematic thinking that had characterized my custody case preparation and business establishment. The quality control measures I implemented included regular case review procedures, client feedback systems, and performance evaluation protocols that ensured consistent service delivery and continuous improvement. The quality assurance program reflected understanding that reputation was built through consistent excellence rather than occasional outstanding performance. The systematic approach to quality control provided framework for maintaining high standards while managing increased caseload and complexity. The professional recognition that resulted from successful practice establishment included bar association acknowledgement, judicial commendation, and client testimonials that validated the transformation that had occurred. The recognition provided credibility that supported continued growth and attracted increasingly complex and prestigious cases. The professional validation that had begun with my custody victory continued through successful practice development and client service excellence. The personal satisfaction derived from successful practice establishment exceeded the professional benefits and provided emotional fulfillment that had been absent during my marriage and custody challenge. The ability to help other families navigate complex legal challenges while building a successful business provided sense of purpose and accomplishment. The personal transformation that had been catalyzed by family betrayal had resulted in professional achievement that exceeded all previous expectations. The impact on my relationship with Emma and Lucas was profoundly positive, as they witnessed their mother's transformation from uncertain victim to confident professional. The children expressed pride in my achievements and demonstrated increased respect for education and professional development. The example I provided through systematic preparation and persistent effort became a model for their own approach to challenges and opportunity. The financial independence that resulted from successful practice establishment provided security and flexibility that had been absent during my marriage and custody challenge. The ability to support my family through professional competence, rather than dependence on others, provided psychological benefits that extended beyond material consideration. The financial success validated the investment in professional development and established foundation for continued growth and security. The transformation from part-time employee to successful legal practitioner had been accomplished through systematic preparation, unwavering determination, and strategic implementation of carefully developed plans. The journey from family betrayal to professional recognition demonstrated extraordinary achievement was possible through systematic effort and refusing to accept limitations imposed by others. The practice establishment marked a significant milestone in the broader transformation that would eventually lead to judicial appointment and recognition as Chief Justice. The landmark case that would establish my reputation within the broader legal community arrived 18 months after opening Sterling family law practice. The Commonwealth versus Blackwood Industries represented a complex corporate liability matter that required expertise far beyond typical family law practice, involving environmental regulations, corporate governance, and multi-jurisdictional legal issues. The case came to my attention through an unexpected referral from Judge Hartwell, who had been approached by the plaintiff's family seeking competent representation for their wrongful death claim against the industrial corporation. The circumstances surrounding the case were both tragic and legally complex. William Blackwood, a chemical plant worker, had died from exposure to toxic substances that the company had allegedly concealed from employees and regulatory authority. His widow, Maria Blackwood, and their 3 children faced not only devastating personal loss, but also a sophisticated corporate defense team determined to minimize liability through technical legal challenges and procedural obstacles. The family's limited financial resources had been quickly exhausted by medical expenses, making traditional contingency representation their only viable option for pursuing justice. The initial case evaluation revealed the magnitude of the challenge I would be undertaking. Blackwood Industries employed a team of attorneys from one of the state's most prestigious corporate law firms, backed by unlimited financial resources and decades of experience in defending environmental liability claims. The corporation had systematically destroyed potentially incriminating documents, transferred assets to subsidiary companies, and implemented defensive strategies designed to discourage litigation through complexity and expense. The opposition possessed every advantage except one. They had underestimated the determination and capabilities of the attorney they would be facing. The legal research phase required mastering multiple areas of law that extended far beyond my family practice expertise. Environmental regulations, occupational safety standards, corporate liability principles, and wrongful death statutes created a complex legal framework that demanded comprehensive understanding and strategic application. The research process involved months of intensive study, consultation with subject matter experts, and analysis of comparable cases from jurisdictions across the country. The intellectual challenge was formidable, but the systematic approach to legal analysis that had served me during my custody case provided the foundation for mastering these new areas of law. The investigation component of the case required coordinating with environmental scientists, medical experts, and industrial safety specialists to establish the causal relationship between workplace exposure and William Blackwood's death. The scientific evidence was complex and required translation into legal arguments that would be persuasive to a jury of non-specialists. The challenge of presenting technical information in accessible terms demanded communication skills that exceeded typical courtroom advocacy requirements. The investigation also revealed that William Blackwood's death was not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of corporate negligence that had affected multiple workers and their families. The discovery process became a sophisticated battle of legal strategy and procedural maneuvering that tested every aspect of my professional capability. Blackwood Industries attempted to overwhelm my small practice with voluminous document requests, numerous depositions, and complex motions designed to exhaust my resources and force a disadvantageous settlement. The corporate defense strategy relied on the assumption that a solo practitioner would be unable to match the resources and expertise of their large firm representation. Their tactical approach proved to be a significant miscalculation. The document review process required developing systematic methods for analyzing thousands of pages of corporate records, employee files, and regulatory correspondence. The organization and analysis of this material revealed patterns of corporate knowledge and deliberate concealment that would become central to establishing liability. The discovery of internal communications acknowledging safety risks while failing to implement protective measures, provided compelling evidence of corporate negligence and deliberate indifference to employee welfare. The deposition strategy required careful preparation to maximize information gathering while avoiding the procedural traps that experienced corporate attorneys typically employed against less sophisticated opposition. The examination of corporate executives and safety officials revealed inconsistencies between their sworn testimony and documented communications, establishing patterns of deception that would be crucial for trial presentation. The deposition process also provided opportunities to assess the credibility and effectiveness of opposing witnesses, information that would be essential for developing trial strategy. The expert witness preparation involved identifying and qualifying specialists in environmental medicine, industrial toxicology, and workplace safety who could provide credible testimony supporting the liability claim. The challenge of securing qualified experts willing to testify against a powerful corporation required extensive networking and relationship building within specialized professional communities. The expert testimony would be essential for establishing the scientific foundation of the case and countering the corporate defense experts who would inevitably challenge every aspect of the plaintiff's claim. The trial preparation phase required developing presentation strategies that would effectively communicate complex technical information to a jury while maintaining emotional connection to the human tragedy at the center of the case. The challenge was to present scientific evidence and legal arguments with sufficient sophistication to overcome corporate defense tactics, while ensuring that the jury understood the real-world impact of corporate negligence on a working family. The presentation strategy needed to be both intellectually compelling and emotionally resonant. The motion practice preceding trial involved sophisticated legal arguments on issues ranging from evidence, admissibility, to jurisdictional challenges, to statutory interpretation. The corporate defense team attempted to exclude crucial evidence through technical objections and procedural challenges that required comprehensive legal research and persuasive written advocacy. The success in defeating these motions established my credibility with the court and demonstrated that sophisticated corporate defense tactics could be effectively countered through superior preparation and legal analysis. The settlement negotiations that occurred throughout the litigation process required strategic thinking about case valuation, risk assessment, and client advocacy that extended beyond traditional legal representation. The corporate defendants made several settlement offers designed to resolve the case for amounts that would be financially significant for the plaintiff family, but minimal compared to potential trial exposure. The evaluation of these offers required comprehensive analysis of trial prospects, potential damage awards, and the psychological impact of continued litigation on the grieving family. The media attention that surrounded the case created additional challenges and opportunities that required careful management to protect client interests while building public awareness of important safety issues. The coverage by local and regional news outlets positioned the case as a David versus Goliath struggle between a working family and a powerful corporation, generating public sympathy that would influence potential jury selection. The media strategy required balancing the benefits of favorable publicity against the risks of prejudicing potential jurors or providing advantages to the opposition. The financial management of the case required careful resource allocation to ensure that the extensive investigation and expert witness costs could be sustained through the lengthy litigation process. The contingency fee arrangement meant that all case expenses were funded by my practice, creating significant financial risk that had to be managed through careful budgeting and strategic decision-making. The financial pressure was substantial, but the systematic approach to resource management that had characterized my custody case preparation provided the foundation for sustainable case development. The professional relationships that were developed during the case included collaborations with other attorneys, expert witnesses, and investigative specialists that expanded my network within the broader legal community. The referral relationships that resulted from these collaborations would provide future opportunities for complex case development and professional advance. The reputation for competent representation of challenging cases against sophisticated opposition attracted attention from attorneys seeking co-counsel arrangements and referral partners. The trial itself became a 6-week demonstration of legal preparation, advocacy skill, and strategic thinking that established my reputation as a formidable trial attorney, capable of competing successfully against the most experienced corporate defense team. The presentation of evidence followed a comprehensive strategy that built credibility through scientific testimony, while maintaining emotional connection to the human impact of corporate negligence. The cross-examination of defense witnesses revealed inconsistencies and evasions that damaged their credibility while supporting the plaintiff's claim. The jury verdict delivered after 2 days of deliberation awarded the Blackwood family compensation that exceeded all expectations and established important precedents for future environmental liability cases. The monetary award provided financial security for Maria Blackwood and her children, while sending a clear message about corporate accountability for workplace safety. The verdict validated the strategic approach to case development and demonstrated that superior preparation could overcome significant resource disadvantage. The recognition that followed the trial victory included acknowledgement from the legal community, media coverage, highlighting the successful advocacy and referral opportunities for similar complex litigation matters. The case established my reputation as an attorney capable of handling sophisticated litigation against well-funded corporate opposition. The professional recognition provided credibility that would be essential for future case development and career advancement opportunities. The personal satisfaction derived from achieving justice for the Blackwood family exceeded the professional benefits and reinforced my commitment to representing clients facing powerful opposition. The ability to secure meaningful compensation for a grieving family while establishing important legal precedents provided sense of purpose that had been absent during my earlier career struggle. The case demonstrated that legal advocacy
could be both professionally rewarding and socially meaningful when directed toward protecting vulnerable individuals against institutional power. The transformation that had begun with my custody case had been completed through successful representation of complex litigation that required expertise, dedication, and strategic thinking at the highest professional level. The journey from family betrayal to successful trial advocacy demonstrated that extraordinary achievement was possible through systematic preparation and unwavering commitment to excellence. The case established the foundation for continued professional advancement and eventual consideration for judicial appointment. The landmark Supreme Court appeal that would establish my national reputation emerged from an unexpected procedural challenge in what initially appeared to be a routine appellate matter. The case, Sterling Metropolitan Insurance Corporation, began as a straightforward insurance coverage dispute, but evolved into a constitutional challenge that would redefine privacy rights in the digital age. The opportunity to argue before the highest court in the state represented the culmination of 3 years of systematic professional development and strategic positioning within the legal community. The constitutional issue arose from Metropolitan Insurance Corporation's use of artificial intelligence algorithms to analyze social media data, medical records, and personal communications when evaluating coverage decisions. The company had systematically denied claims based on algorithmic assessments that incorporated private information obtained without explicit consent or judicial oversight. The practice represented a fundamental challenge to established privacy protections and due process rights that had not been adequately addressed by existing legal framework. The technical complexity of the case required mastering emerging technologies and their intersection with constitutional law, areas that few attorneys had systematically explored. The legal research involved collaboration with technology experts, constitutional scholars, and privacy advocates to develop arguments that would be both technically accurate and legally persuasive. The challenge was to present complex technological concepts within established constitutional frameworks, while advocating for expanded privacy protections that reflected contemporary reality. The strategic importance of the case extended beyond the immediate parties to encompass fundamental questions about corporate power, individual privacy, and the role of technology in modern society. The outcome would establish precedents that would influence countless future cases involving digital privacy, algorithmic decision-making, and corporate accountability. The recognition that this case could shape legal development for decades created both opportunity and responsibility that required careful consideration of broader societal implications. The preparation process involved developing innovative legal theories that combined traditional constitutional analysis with contemporary understanding of technological capabilities and privacy expectations. The argument structure needed to educate the court about complex technological processes while demonstrating their constitutional significance. The challenge was to present cutting-edge legal theories within established precedential frameworks that would be accessible to justices with varying levels of technological expertise. The brief writing process required creating a document that would serve as a model for future constitutional advocacy in technology-related cases. The legal argument needed to be comprehensive enough to address all potential challenges while remaining accessible to judges and attorneys who would rely on the precedent in future matters. The brief became a 47-page analysis that synthesized constitutional law, technology policy, and privacy theory into a coherent framework for judicial decision-making. The coalition-building component involved coordinating with civil liberties organizations, technology advocacy groups, and academic institutions that submitted supporting briefs, reinforcing the constitutional argument. The collaboration required diplomatic skills and strategic thinking to ensure that supporting arguments enhanced rather than conflicted with the primary legal theory. The coordinated advocacy effort demonstrated the broad significance of the constitutional issues and provided additional credibility for the legal argument. The oral argument preparation involved intensive practice sessions with constitutional law experts, technology specialists, and experienced appellate advocates, who provided feedback on presentation techniques and potential judicial questions. The preparation process included mock arguments before panels of attorneys and law professors who challenged every aspect of the legal theory and presentation strategy. The practice sessions revealed potential weaknesses in the argument structure and provided opportunities to refine responses to anticipated challenges. Media strategy for the case required careful balance between public education about important constitutional issues and protection of the legal arguments from premature disclosure or misinterpretation. The public attention generated by the case created opportunities to influence broader understanding of privacy rights, while avoiding commentary that might prejudice the judicial decision-making process. Media engagement demonstrated the public significance of the legal issues, while maintaining professional standards for ongoing litigation. The technological education component required developing comprehensive understanding of artificial intelligence algorithms, data mining techniques, and privacy protection technologies that would be essential for effective advocacy. The learning process involved consultation with computer scientists, data analysts, and privacy engineers who provided technical expertise that informed the legal argument. The technological competence developed through this process would become a distinguishing characteristic of my legal practice and professional reputation. The constitutional scholarship that emerged from the case preparation included law review articles and professional conference presentations that established my expertise in the intersection of technology and constitutional law. The academic writing provided platforms for developing and testing legal theories while building credibility within the scholarly community. The scholarship also provided networking opportunities with constitutional law experts and technology policy specialists who would become valuable professional contacts. The Supreme Court oral argument itself represented the culmination of months of preparation and the opportunity to present innovative constitutional arguments before the most prestigious judicial panel in the state. The 30-minute presentation required comprehensive mastery of both legal doctrine and technological concepts, delivered with the confidence and clarity necessary to persuade skeptical justices. The argument addressed complex constitutional principles while maintaining accessibility and logical flow that would support judicial decision-making. The questioning from the justices revealed their engagement with the constitutional issues and their recognition of the case's broader significance for privacy rights and technological governance. Judicial inquiries tested every aspect of the legal theory and required precise responses that demonstrated thorough preparation and comprehensive understanding of the constitutional framework. The interaction with the court provided opportunities to clarify complex issues and address potential concerns about the practical implications of the proposed legal standard. The decision drafting process, which occurred over several months following oral argument, involved continued engagement with the court through supplemental briefing and responses to specific judicial inquiries. The court's interest in developing comprehensive precedent that would provide guidance for future cases required additional research and analysis that supported the constitutional framework being established. The collaborative process with the court demonstrated the significance of the legal issues and the care being taken to develop appropriate precedential guidance. The unanimous Supreme Court decision that emerged 6 months after oral argument established groundbreaking precedent for digital privacy rights and corporate accountability in algorithmic decision-making. The court's opinion adopted the constitutional framework I had proposed while expanding its application to encompass broader categories of technological privacy violation. The decision was praised by constitutional scholars as a landmark ruling that would influence privacy law development for generations. The national recognition that followed the Supreme Court victory included invitations to speak at constitutional law conferences, requests for legal commentary from national media outlets, and consultation opportunities with congressional committees considering privacy legislation. The professional visibility generated by the case positioned me as a leading expert in constitutional technology law and created opportunities for influence that extended far beyond traditional legal practice. The recognition validated the strategic decision to pursue complex constitutional litigation despite the significant risks and resource requirements. The academic appointments that resulted from the constitutional law expertises included adjunct professorships at 2 law schools and research fellowships that provided platforms for continued scholarship and teaching. The academic positions offered opportunities to influence the next generation of attorneys while developing legal theories that would shape future constitutional development. The teaching responsibilities also provided intellectual stimulation and professional satisfaction that complemented the practical aspects of legal practice. The consulting opportunities that emerged from the technology law expertises included advising technology companies, government agencies, and advocacy organizations on constitutional compliance and privacy protection strategies. The consulting work provided additional revenue streams while expanding professional networks within the technology and policy community. The advisory roles also offered opportunities to influence the development of technology policies and corporate practices before constitutional violations occurred. The legislative testimony that resulted from the constitutional expertises included appearances before state and federal committees considering privacy legislation and technology regulation. The testimony provided opportunities to influence policy development while establishing relationships with legislative leaders and policy experts. The legislative engagement demonstrated the practical application of constitutional scholarship and reinforced my reputation as an expert capable of translating complex legal concepts into actionable policy recommendations. The professional association leadership opportunities that followed the Supreme Court victory included election to the Board of Directors of the State Bar Association and appointment to constitutional law committees that influence professional standards and legal education. The leadership positions provided platforms for continued influence within the legal profession while contributing to the development of ethical guidelines for technology-related legal practice. The association leadership also offered networking opportunities with judicial appointment committees and political leaders who influence court selection process. The judicial consideration that began following the constitutional law recognition involved informal discussions with political leaders and bar association officials about potential appointment opportunities. The conversation about judicial service reflected recognition that my constitutional expertises and demonstrated competence warranted consideration for positions of greater responsibility and influence. The judicial consideration process required careful navigation of political relationships while maintaining professional standards and ethical obligations.
The mentorship role that developed following the professional recognition involved guidance of younger attorneys interested in constitutional law and technology policy. The mentoring relationships provided opportunities to share knowledge and experience while contributing to the development of expertise within the legal profession. The mentorship also offered personal satisfaction through helping others achieve professional success and advance important legal causes. The international recognition that resulted from the constitutional law expertise included invitations to speak at global conferences on privacy rights and technology governance. The international engagement provided opportunities to influence legal development beyond domestic boundaries while learning from international approaches to constitutional privacy protection. The global perspective enhanced my understanding of constitutional issues while expanding professional networks within the international legal community. The breakthrough represented by the Supreme Court victory demonstrated that innovative legal thinking and strategic advocacy could influence constitutional development while building professional reputation and expanding career opportunity. The case established my expertise in emerging areas of constitutional law, while providing credibility that would support future professional advancement and judicial consideration. The transformation from family law practitioner to constitutional law expert illustrated the potential for continued professional growth and intellectual development throughout a legal career. The systematic approach to professional development that had characterized my journey from custody case preparation to Supreme Court advocacy provided a framework for continued achievement and recognition. The success demonstrated that extraordinary professional accomplishment was possible through strategic planning, comprehensive preparation, and unwavering commitment to excellence in legal advocacy and scholarship. The constitutional law expertise established through the Supreme Court victory generated opportunities for influence that extended far beyond traditional legal practice and positioned me for consideration at the highest levels of judicial service. The recognition as a leading authority on technology and privacy law created demand for my expertise across multiple sectors, from academic institutions seeking constitutional scholars to government agencies requiring specialized legal counsel. The expansion of influence represented a systematic progression from local legal practice to national recognition that would establish the foundation for eventual judicial appointment. The Georgetown University Law Center extended an invitation to serve as a visiting professor specializing in constitutional technology law, providing a platform for developing legal scholarship while influencing the education of future attorneys and judges. The academic appointment required relocating to Washington, D.C. for one academic year, creating opportunities for engagement with federal policymakers and national legal organizations. The teaching responsibilities included developing curriculum for emerging areas of constitutional law, while conducting research that would influence legal development across multiple jurisdictions. The course development process required creating comprehensive educational materials that would establish the academic foundation for constitutional technology law as a distinct legal discipline. The curriculum integrated traditional constitutional analysis with contemporary understanding of technological capabilities and privacy expectations. The academic work provided opportunities to influence legal education while establishing my reputation as a leading scholar in the intersection of law and technology. The research collaboration opportunities that emerged from the academic appointment included partnerships with interdisciplinary teams, comprising legal scholars, computer scientists, and policy analysts working on privacy rights and technological governance. The collaborative research provided access to cutting-edge developments in technology policy while contributing to academic understanding of constitutional issues in the digital age. The scholarly work resulted in publications that would influence both academic discourse and practical legal development. The federal consultation opportunities that accompanied the Washington, D.C. position included advising congressional committees on privacy legislation and providing expertise to regulatory agencies developing technology governance framework. The policy work offered opportunities to influence federal law development while building relationships with national political leaders and senior government officials. The consultation activities demonstrated the practical application of constitutional expertise in policy development and regulatory implementation. The American Bar Association Constitutional Law Committee appointment provided opportunities to influence professional standards and ethical guidelines for technology-related legal practice. The committee work involved developing best practices for attorneys handling privacy rights cases, while contributing to continuing education programs for legal professionals. The professional association leadership enhanced my visibility within the national legal community while providing platforms for continued scholarship and policy influence. The federal judicial clerkship application process began during my academic residency in Washington, D.C., representing the first formal step toward judicial service consideration. The application required comprehensive documentation of legal scholarship, professional achievement, and judicial philosophy that would be evaluated by federal judges considering potential clerk. The clerkship opportunity would provide direct exposure to federal judicial decision-making while establishing relationships that would be essential for future judicial consideration. The Supreme Court of the United States clerkship offer that resulted from the application process represented recognition of my constitutional expertise at the highest level of the federal judiciary. The position required relocating to Washington, D.C. for a full term while providing direct exposure to the most significant constitutional cases in the nation. The clerkship offered unprecedented opportunities to influence constitutional development while learning from the most experienced constitutional jurists in the country. The Supreme Court clerkship responsibilities included research and analysis of constitutional issues affecting fundamental rights, separation of powers, and federal jurisdiction. The work required comprehensive understanding of constitutional doctrine while developing skills in judicial decision-making and opinion writing. The clerkship experience provided insights into judicial philosophy and constitutional interpretation that would be invaluable for future judicial service. The relationship development with Supreme Court justices during the clerkship created mentorship opportunities that would influence my judicial philosophy and constitutional understanding. The interaction with justices representing diverse constitutional perspectives provided comprehensive exposure to different approaches to judicial decision. The mentorship relationships established during the clerkship would provide ongoing guidance and support throughout my subsequent judicial career. The constitutional scholarship that developed during the clerkship included contributions to law review articles and judicial opinions that would influence constitutional interpretation for decades. The scholarly work provided opportunities to develop legal theories while contributing to the evolution of constitutional doctrine. The academic contributions enhanced my reputation within the scholarly community while demonstrating the intellectual capacity necessary for judicial service at the highest level. The national speaking engagement opportunities that resulted from the Supreme Court clerkship included presentations at constitutional law conferences and professional development programs across the country. The speaking opportunities provided platforms for sharing constitutional expertise while building relationships with judicial appointment committees and political leaders. The public speaking also enhanced my visibility within the legal community while demonstrating the communication skills necessary for effective judicial service. The judicial philosophy development that occurred during the Supreme Court clerkship involved comprehensive examination of constitutional interpretation methodologies and judicial decision-making approaches. The philosophical development required integration of academic constitutional theory with practical judicial experience and consideration of the societal impact of constitutional decisions. The judicial philosophy that emerged would guide future decision-making and provide the intellectual foundation for judicial service. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.